Well, philosopher stoner, once again. So, sort of beating a dead horse here, but I got a few comments on my last video, well, my last couple of videos in relation to Vox Days Socio Sexual hierarchy. So he's the guy that created this thing that I've been talking about, that I've talked about many times before, the alpha, beta, delta, gamma, omega, and I also forgot to mention the sigma male, which is kind of like an alpha male but more introverted, the lone wolf. But I think that's more of a made up thing. But anyways, yes, most of it is in a very male centered way, and it's the vision of it is like pack animals, like a pack of wolves, and you can see it in nature. You can see it in a lot of pack animal structures, a flock of birds. And the gist of it, the idea is just that there's a leader of the group. There are the second in commands, there are the worker bees, and then there are guys that are at the bottom that have very low status, but still some sort of status, and then outcasts of the group, like the omega, that don't have any status at all, that are barely in the group. I have followed, the local birds, like the Canadian geese and stuff, and seen it. You'll see like one bird goes, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." It makes a noise, and then all the other birds follow it, and that's the alpha. Then he has his lieutenants, and he has his little underlings. Then you have like the average deltas, and then you have, the lower status guys, and then you have a guy way at the fringe of it that's barely even a part of the group. That's like the ugly duckling, the guy that gets, bullied and abused and is practically an outcast. And it applies to all groups. So, and it's a spectrum. That's the hardest thing to grasp. Is so say a group of gamma male guys, a guy like me that's basically a low status nerd, basically a nerd. In a group of nerds, there's going to be the boss of the nerds, right? So you have a group of gamma males. There will be an alpha amongst a pack of guys that would basically be considered by the rest of the society to be gamma males. Um, there's every little group, every clique in high school, like the jocks, the nerds, the goths, the punk rockers, like whatever you identify as, whatever ideology, we all follow a kind of hierarchy. I think it's logical that, yeah, there are leaders, there are followers, there are, people in the middle and people at the bottom, kind of, and that's all it is. And yes, the question of it applying to women, yes, it's the exact same thing. There are alpha females, but they are rare. Um, you see, because a lot of it is this male dominated view. It's in the sense that, yes, us men are always vying for dominance, whereas women are less so of that. They do things more sneaky, though, more manipulative. It's not necessarily a direct communication. Women don't qualify, they disqualify. Women don't communicate directly, they communicate indirectly. So women will do a similar thing, like a dominance thing, except that they will ostracize other women. They'll gossip, they'll exclude, they'll try to get rid of other women in their particular group. So, like, I guess an example in the female sense of an alpha male is like someone I've talked about before, Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand was an alpha female. She turned her husband into a complete cuck. I'm using that term, a cuck. Basically, forced him to watch her have sex with a guy, a younger guy named Nathaniel Brandon, that was like 20, 30 years younger than her. And she had an affair with him. They had sex and everything, and then yeah, she forced his husband, Frank O'Connor, to watch. So yeah, she was an alpha female. She had a pull with men. She was very dominant. She got what she wanted. So yeah, women follow the same thing too. There are beta females, there are delta females, gamma females, right? There are women that are very extremely attractive, or perceived as very attractive by society, that they get access to the best, the alpha males, right? They're like supermodels, Playboy bunnies, that sort of thing, really super attractive. Also, women on shows like Sex and the City, which are more modern women, because historically, that there was always, with sexual relationships, always this liability of pregnancy and venereal disease, right? So women always had to be very, very careful about who they let be a mate. So they were always choosing the guys with the most survival value. And that's where this whole beta male problem comes in, is because, yes, women are ultimately, yes, attracted to the alpha, the dominant, but they have to settle for some kind of a beta or lesser male. But as long as that guy has some sort of survival value, they're attracted to that status anyway, of at least a guy that has money, even though he may not be dominant. But it's features of success. It's features of the successful risk taker that has survival value in a tribe. It's like how women like funny guys, and funny is an adaptable feature. It shows you're adaptable. So then that has survival value. So there's all sorts of features that women are selecting for. But anyways, yes, it's the same hierarchical structure with women. They just do it a different way. As I said before, like social exclusion. They don't do like what men do, where we get into fisticuffs and vie for dominance. They do it differently, but it's the same thing. Yes, so then there are women that are not, like I said, those alpha Ayn Rand or Sex in the City types that are extremely, attractive, whatever. And it's a spectrum, right? A lot of women have to settle for beta males. They're also a beta female. They're not necessarily very attractive. They have a lower sexual marketplace value, but in comparison to a man, they're still less disposable, though, because they're the incubator. They're the ones carrying the baby. So even an ugly woman has more status than the average beta male. But still, like I said, they're following the same structure. Somebody also made a comment. I think that answers the one comment. This other comment was about how it applies to gay people and lesbians. It's still the same thing. Like as I've said before in other videos, I don't care what you do or who you screw. What consenting adults do behind closed doors is really none of my fucking business. But I would argue, though, that gay is partially genetic. It's true, but it's also a choice. And I would argue in our dysfunctional society, with this whole, like I said, beta male problem and status problem, that the gay and lesbian world is a more egalitarian sexual marketplace. It's a more of a fair fight. There's less status, there's less stuff involved, that it's easier to get to have sex being gay or being a lesbian. You have a lot more options. It's a more level playing field. But yes, even in groups of gays and lesbians, there's a similar dominant structure, although it gets sort of inverted in a way, right? I've met lesbians, I've had relationships with some lesbians that were like total butch dykes, that they were like women that were very masculine. There was this one woman, I remember her, Brenda, and she was almost like a guy. The only thing you'd notice, though, is she had boobs, but she had short hair, covered in all sorts of weird, like me, like weird tattoos and stuff, deeper voice. It was almost like she was a dude or pretending to be a dude. And then her wife was more feminine, right? So there's yes, even in those relationships, there's a polarity. There's the one partner that's a dominant and one partner that's a submissive. My pervert uncle that I've mentioned before, the guy who's a monster, he's also gay. Well, he's also a pedophile, but I've talked about that before in other videos. Like I said, he's a monster, but he's also gay. He's in the gay world what they call a bear. Yeah, a bear. So he's the dominant. He's the guy that sticks the dick in the ass. He doesn't take it up the ass. And he would be the last guy you'd think is gay. He's tall like me, 6'4", big. He's almost like 300 pounds. He's got, a big beard. He's a massive fucking beast of a guy. And yeah, he's a bear. He's a dominant. But he's gay. But yeah, he's a fat, creepy weirdo. And in the gay world, yes, it's easier for him to get to sex being gay, even just like that. a lot more options. But yes, there's, like I said, there's the one partner that's the dominant, the one partner that's the submissive, and there are similar structures, although I would argue, yes, it's slightly less so. There are still alphas and betas and deltas and gammas and omegas and whatever. It's just less pronounced, and it's hard to figure out who is who, right? It's hard. It's a little bit harder, a little bit trickier, but it's still the same sort of thing. In every group, there's going to be a leader. Every group, there's going to be the people in the middle, and then every group, there's going to be people that are practically outcasts of the group, or that are following this hierarchical system. But I don't have any thinkers or authors or books or sources to cite that back up anything that I'm saying in relation to women or to gay people. So this is a subject that's completely debatable. Again, it's just my opinion, and opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. And again, the real thinker that you should be looking into that talks about this stuff in depth is this guy. I mentioned him at the beginning of the video. His name is Vox Day, Vox, and then Day, D-A-Y. He actually has a YouTube channel. I have watched many of his videos, but he builds on anthropology and sociology and other research that's been done, that these words were already in the lexicon. He just expanded upon it and applied it to human society. But of course, yes, it is a very male-centered view of things. It's how men operate. But like I said, the failure of that is just there tend to be these, even though it's politically incorrect to say so, there are differences between men and women and how we do things. But I think it's similar. I think there's a lot of overlap. I think ultimately, yeah, the way women do things winds up being the same thing in the end. They just do it a slightly different way. And like I said, the same thing with the gays. It winds up being the same thing in the end. It's just done in a slightly different way. It appears as if it's different, but it's not really different, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the subject. But like I said, at the end of the day, nobody really gives a fuck. Nobody really gives a shit. What the fuck do I know? And really, who fucking cares? I don't care. I don't need to be an alpha male. I'm trying to be more of a lone wolf, and that's more like a sigma male. But yeah, I think sigmas are, like as I said before, are kind of made up. But at the end of the day, nobody really cares about any of this crap. It's just a useful idea to start looking at groups and human society and understanding why it appears. The conspiracy theorists talk about the 1% and the pyramid and everything, that there's an element of truth to that pyramid concept. Although, as I said in my last video, there isn't just a single pyramid in the world. There's multiple pyramids. And as I said before, every group, whether it's a group of nerds or a group of jocks or a group of lesbians or a group of women, there's some kind of a power structure going on. There are people that are more the leaders and people that are more the followers, and it's a spectrum of features. And the problem is, like I said, we come from primitive hunter-gatherer origins, and things in the last, even just the last 100 years, have completely changed. That what had survival value back 20,000 years ago in the primitive hunter-gatherer tribes in the jungle doesn't have survival value now, right? So like a lot of alpha male types, yeah, you'll find them in prison. An environment of total alpha males is basically, yeah, your average prison, where certain things about civilization make certain features dysfunctional. But we can't ignore our biological pre-existing hardwiring, that is just thousands of years of evolution, that we're still attracted to things. It's like why we like McDonald's hamburgers. They're flavor bombs. They have protein, sugar, carbs that would have been scarce in the wild, but now in modern civilization we have an abundance of it, and they're actually destroying us, making us obese and whatever, because we have too much of a good thing. So it's the same with, yes, an alpha male to a lot of women is attractive, but not necessarily always very good in the context of civilization. there are a lot of dysfunctional alpha males in our society, that sort of thing. So, anyways, I'm starting to ramble and go off on these other different tangents, but yeah, that's basically it. That's basically my thoughts on the subject. I probably already said that, but yeah, this is enough of a video. 15 minutes is enough of my blabbing this bullshit. Um, any questions? Yeah, feel free to leave a comment. I enjoy the comments. I enjoy the intellectual stimulation. It's good to get feedback and challenge my ideas. So yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for watching. Philosopher Stoner out.